An old man sits on the floor of a volcanic cave. The air smells of salt and sulfur. His knees grind against the rough stone. He maps out exactly how a faith that starts with a roar slowly quiets down into an echo. You split your allegiance. You divide your soul. You survive the economy. The church leaders listen. They watch her lead the people into spiritual adultery. They refuse to draw a line. They value peace over purity. They value attendance over holiness. They say absolutely nothing. The silence is not a lack of courage. It is an endorsement. The sin of Thyatira is not weakness. It is complicity. Jesus issues a terrifying verdict. He gave her time. She refused to turn. So the judgment is swift. He will throw her onto a bed of sickness. He will strike her followers. He will make her a public example. Every church on the Roman route will see the smoke. They will know the one with eyes like flaming fire searches the mind and the heart. The warning shakes the bronze workers. But at least Thyatira is fighting a visible war. At least there is life left to corrupt. The courier packs his bag. He travels 40 miles southeast. He climbs a steep road toward a towering, impregnable rock. The next church is not struggling with compromise. They do not have false prophets. Because false prophets only target the living. The tragedy of a spiritual graveyard is that it usually looks like a highly successful ministry. To feel the weight of what is about to happen, you have to step onto the ancient Roman road. The courier steps off a boat. When the courier finally reaches Sardis, he walks into a city defined by an arrogant, deadly overconfidence. Geographically, Sardis sits on top of an impregnable acropolis, surrounded on three sides by sheer, vertical cliffs of smooth rock. Historically, it was an ancient fortress that simply could not be taken by force. But twice in its long history, first by Cyrus the Great, and later by Antiochus' enemy armies, successfully captured the city without fighting a single major battle. The invaders simply climbed the sheer rock face in the dead of night, slipped over the walls, and opened the gates, because the Sardian sentries had fallen asleep at their posts. The guards assumed the height of the walls did the work for them. The church in this city is operating with the exact same lethal assumption. They have a brilliant reputation across the Roman province. Everyone considers them a vibrant, active congregation. They are not being crushed by the empire like Smyrna. And they are not battling internal heresy like Thyatira. But the culture leaves them alone simply because they pose absolutely no spiritual threat. They have entirely assimilated. Jesus looks at this comfortable, unbothered religious museum in Revelation chapter 3, verse 2, and delivers a desperate, shouting command. He holds a scroll wrapped in leather, sealed to survive a brutal journey. He is looking at a specific circuit. He tells them, "Wake up and strengthen what remains and is about to die." The word translated as "wake up" is the Greek gregoreo. It appears 22 times in the New Testament, and it carries the hypervigilant, high-stakes energy of a military sentry standing guard in the cold night air. The word does not merely mean to open your eyes from a nap. It means to hold the night watch, to actively scan the horizon, and to anticipate a stealthy, imminent threat. It is the exact same word Jesus uses in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he asks his closest friends to stay with him in the darkest, most terrifying hour of his earthly life. He tells Peter to Gregoreo to watch, and Peter succumbs to his heavy eyelids and falls asleep in the dirt. That historical context changes the entire weight of the letter. The believers in Sardis are repeating the ancient, fatal mistake of their own city's military history. They assume the towering walls of their past reputation will protect them. They assume their lack of cultural conflict is a sign of divine blessing. Their peace is not the reward of a hard-fought victory. It is the silence of a tomb. Jesus warns them that if they do not Gregoreo, if they do not man the spiritual walls, he will come against them like a thief in the night. The 7 cities are connected by a crescent-shaped highway in ancient Asia Minor, in what is now Western Turkey. Exactly the way the ancient armies breached their impregnable city, a church can possess a flawless doctrinal statement. a full calendar of events, and the respect of the entire community. While the spiritual pulse completely flatlines, the courier leaves the city of the living dead. He follows the Roman road southeast, walking directly along an active volcanic fault line. The next church does not suffer from overconfidence. They are standing on ground that is about to tear completely apart. The ground shudders beneath the courier's sandals. A deep, low rumble of stone, grinding against stone, echoes through the streets, and a thin line of dust falls from the plaster of a nearby arch. The citizens of Philadelphia sleep with one eye open. This is a city built directly on top of a violent geological fault. Decades earlier, a massive earthquake completely leveled the entire region, leaving behind a profound psychological scar. The trauma still lingers in the architecture and in the bones of the people. When the tremors start, they run out of the city gates into the open fields. They refuse to sleep under heavy Roman roofs. They live in constant, vibrating anxiety, always waiting for the pillars to crack. And the church gathering in this trembling city is absolutely exhausted. If you trace the route on a map, it makes a perfect horseshoe. Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea. Jesus looks at them and sees a tiny, battered congregation holding on to their faith by a thread. He says to them in Revelation 3-8, "I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word." They have no political influence. They have no massive wealth. They have no imposing fortress walls to hide behind. But the letter does not offer them a strategy for growth. It offers them an open door. "Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut." The door is not an escape route. It is a divine invitation. The Roman Empire constantly changes the name of this city to honor various Caesars. The tectonic plates constantly shift under their feet. The people constantly flee the collapsing temples. Everything in their world is fragile, temporary, and prone to breaking. So Jesus speaks to their specific twait, localized trauma. Using the exact architecture of their fear, he promises that the one who conquers will become a pillar in the temple of God, a pillar that will not crack, a temple that will not fall, a sanctuary that will never have to be rebuilt. Never shall he go out of it. Jesus says, the running is over, the fleeing is finished, the ground will finally hold. He promises to write his own name on them, not the name of a temporary Roman emperor. It is the standard postal route of the Roman province. The message was not sent into the void. It was sent into the fire. Not a political title that can be erased by the next regime. Their lack of strength is not a disqualification. It is the exact requirement for his presence. They are the only church on the route described as having little power. And they are one of the only churches that does not receive a single word of rebuke. The courier reads the blessing, rolls the parchment, and turns toward the final stop. He walks 40 miles down a sloping road into the Lycus River Valley. He walks into the wealthiest, most self-sufficient city on the entire circuit. And he carries the most nauseating warning of all. We fundamentally misunderstand this warning. We read the word lukewarm and we make it about emotional intensity. We assume hot means a fiery, passionate, highly expressive believer. We assume cold means an absolute skeptic, someone actively hostile to the faith. We assume Jesus is saying he would rather you completely hate him than feel indifferent about him. But Jesus is not diagnosing their emotional temperature. He is diagnosing their civic plumbing. To see what the text is actually saying, you have to look at the ground they are standing on. Laodicea is ridiculously wealthy. They are an ancient banking center. They breed a specific kind of sheep that produces thick, glossy black wool. They manufacture and export a famous medical eye salve. Each city has a specific economy, a specific temple, a specific pressure point designed to break the people living inside of it. When a massive earthquake devastated the region in AD 60, the Roman Senate offered disaster relief funds. Laodicea formally refused the money. They rebuilt the city themselves. They bought their own stones. They paid their own architects. They needed absolutely no one. But they had a glaring geographical flaw. They had no local water supply. They had to pipe it in through a complex network of stone aqueducts. 10 miles to the north, the city of Hierapolis boasted boiling, mineral-rich hot springs. People traveled from all over the empire to sit in the steam for physical healing. 10 miles to the south, the city of Colossae possessed freezing, refreshing, mountain streams running off snow-capped peaks. People drank it for survival. Hot water heals. Cold water refreshes. Both have a distinct, vital purpose. By the time the piped water traveled miles across the valley to Laodicea, it was completely compromised. It sat baking in the Mediterranean sun. The stone pipes were encrusted with thick, white calcium carbonate. The water arrived tepid. It smelled like heavy minerals. If you scooped it into a cup and drank it, the water literally induced a gag reflex. This is the exact image Jesus uses in Revelation chapter 3. The English text reads, "Because you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth." The Greek word translated lukewarm is kleros. It appears exactly once in the entire New Testament, just this single time. And the word translated spit is the Greek verb emeo. It does not mean to politely spit something onto the ground. The voice speaking from the vision does not offer generic religious encouragement. The voice knows the street corners. It means to violently vomit. The Laodicean church has become their own civic water supply. They do not heal the broken. They do not refresh the weary. They are completely self-contained. They are comfortably assimilated. They are spiritually useless. Lukewarm is not a lack of religious excitement. It is a lack of spiritual purpose. Jesus looks at their massive bank accounts, their black wool clothing, and their advanced medical industries. He strips the illusion away in a rapid-fire sequence. You say you are rich. You are bankrupt. You manufacture clothes. You are naked. You sell eye salve. You are utterly blind. He does not threaten them with an invading army. He does not warn them of persecution. He simply stands outside their locked door and knocks. The postal route is now complete. All 7 congregations have been diagnosed. But the ink on the parchment is not the final revelation. The courier is about to step aside. The courier rolls the heavy leather scroll. The pieces of broken wax fall to the stone floor. The air in the Laodicean house church is perfectly still. The people who manufacture the world's finest eye salve sit in absolute, stunned silence, suddenly realizing they are completely blind. We tend to view these 7 letters as a theological performance review from an absent manager. We imagine a distant deity looking down from a sterile cosmic balcony, taking notes on a clipboard, grading each congregation on a moral curve. The voice knows the trade guilds. The voice knows the smell of the meat roasting on the pagan altars. He knows exactly where they live. The letters are not an imperial report card. They are a physical visitation. Look back at the prologue of the vision on the island of Patmos. When John hears the voice behind him, a voice that sounds like a loud trumpet, he turns around, and he does not see a king sitting passively in the heavens. He sees a high priest actively walking in the middle of 7 golden lampstands. The text explicitly tells us those lampstands are the 7 churches of Asia Minor. He is not standing far away from the dirt, the trade guilds, and the noise of the Roman province. He is moving right through the center of it. He feels the brutal heat of the Thyatira forge. He smells the crushed myrrh in the dark prisons of Smyrna. He tastes the nauseating, mineral-heavy water sitting in the stone pipes of Laodicea. In the ancient temple, a lampstand could not tend itself. Without daily intervention, the oil runs dry. The wick turns to black char and begins to fill the room with toxic smoke. The light slowly dies. The lamp requires the constant, intimate, hands-on attention of a priest who must pinch off the dead embers with bronze tongs and pour fresh, heavy oil into the bowl. Jesus is not walking among these 7 struggling congregations to condemn them for the sake of condemnation. He is walking among them to trim the wicks. He knows what they are breathing in, and he knows exactly what they have lost. The courier's first stop is the crown jewel of the province. When he threatens to remove the lampstand in Ephesus, it is not an act of rage. It is an act of mercy to the surrounding darkness, because a dead lamp only pretends to offer light. He is trying to keep the fire alive in a ruthless empire that wants to extinguish it. The human courier carrying the parchment is just a shadow. The true messenger is the one whose voice sounds like the roar of rushing water, the one holding the 7 stars firmly in his right hand. He stands at the door of a wealthy, blind, and naked congregation, and his knuckles rap against the heavy wood. The postal route in ancient Asia Minor is officially finished, but the resonance of that knock is about to break the boundaries of the 1st century. A church defended the truth without love, and the lampstand grew cold. A congregation was crushed under the weight of the empire, and they produced the fragrance of pure myrrh. A people sat down at the pagan table, and the sword of his mouth drew a line in the sand. A city of bronze workers tolerated the silent rod of compromise, and the one with eyes of fire searched the floor of the forge. A fortress slept comfortably behind impregnable walls. He is surrounded by miles of black Aegean water, exiled by a Roman emperor who demanded to be called God. A bustling harbor city where the air is thick with the smoke of a massive temple, and the streets are crowded with merchants selling silver idols. And the true sentry arrived in the dead of night. A battered remnant held onto a trembling fault line, and they became a pillar in a temple that will never break. A wealthy city manufactured its own tepid water, and the high priest knocked on a locked door. 7 cities, 7 letters, 1 high priest walking in the dark. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the bronze tongs. The high priest in the ancient temple does not look at a dying, smoking flame and throw the golden bowl into the street. He does not demand that the oil produce itself. He steps directly into the toxic char, pinches off the dead embers, and pours in the heavy, fresh oil. He does the dirty, intimate work of keeping the fire alive. If you are in a season where your faith has become a theological fortress with a completely cold hearth, if you are standing on ground that feels like it is constantly shifting beneath your feet, and you have nothing left but a little power. If you have been pragmatically negotiating with the culture just to survive, slowly dividing your allegiance until you no longer recognize your own reflection, the knock at the door is not an eviction notice. They are a church that has survived the fire of persecution. They have fought off the wolves. It is an intervention. The one with eyes like flaming fire is not standing on a distant cosmic balcony, sterile and unbothered, grading your religious performance on a curve. He is walking right through the center of your exhaustion. Your little power is not a disqualification. It is the exact requirement for his presence. If this opens something in how you read these ancient letters, subscribe and leave a comment. Even 1 word helps. Share this with someone who feels like their lamp is running out of oil. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who has never once abandoned a smoldering wick walk with you through the crushing press and bring you out, carrying a fire that the empire cannot extinguish. They have held the line against false teachers. But the first words of the letter carry a terrifying revelation. The congregation gathering in the shadow of the Temple of Artemis looks exactly like a success story. If you evaluate them by any modern metric of religious devotion, they are thriving in a highly hostile environment. Ephesus is the banking and commercial center of Asia Minor, dominated by the massive, heavy marble pillars of a pagan wonder of the world. The air in the city constantly smells of roasting meat from temple sacrifices and the sweat of a booming idol trade industry. To be a Christian here is to swim against a brutal economic and cultural current. And they do. They work to the point of absolute exhaustion. They test false teachers and expose them as liars. They have built a theological fortress, and the walls are impenetrable. But then Jesus issues a diagnosis in Revelation chapter 2, verse 4, that drops like a stone into a quiet pond. John, the last living apostle, is dipping a reed into black ink. He is not writing an apocalyptic puzzle for the 21st century. He is writing a letter. But I have this against you, that you have abandoned the love you had at first. The word our English Bibles translate as love is the Greek agape. It appears hundreds of times in the New Testament, and it carries a weight that the modern English word completely fails to capture. Agape is not an emotion. It is a self-sacrificing, covenantal loyalty. It is the willful decision to place the benefit of another person above your own comfort, your own safety, and your own life. It is the exact same word the Apostle Paul used when he wrote a letter to this very same city 30 years earlier. He prayed that the Ephesians would be rooted and grounded in agape. But 3 decades later, the roots have withered. That single word changes how we read the entire warning. The Ephesians have maintained the machinery of religion while completely losing its heart. They can spot a heretical teaching from a mile away. They have perfect boundaries. They are orthodox, disciplined, and doctrinally flawless. But their orthodoxy is cold. Agape is not a feeling of religious excitement that naturally fades over time. It is the engine of the entire Christian life. Without it, the church in Ephesus has become nothing more than a theological police force. They are defending the truth with the cold, metallic clang of a sword. Most people assume the book of Revelation is a roadmap to the end of the world. A timeline of dragons, beasts, and blood moons, but they are no longer bleeding for the world they are trying to save. Jesus warns them that if they do not remember where they fell and do the works they did at first, he will come and remove their lampstand from its place. Truth without love is not a lesser form of Christianity. It is a dead lamp in a dark room. The warning to Ephesus is about the tragedy of an extinguished hearth. But the courier does not stay there. He packs the scroll and travels 40 miles straight north up the coast. The next congregation is not suffering from a cold hearth. They are about to be thrown into a furnace. The courier walks into Smyrna. The air smells of crushed myrrh. The city is breathtaking. It curves around the Aegean Gulf like a glittering marble necklace. It is wealthy. It is proud. And it is fiercely loyal to Rome. The believers gathering in the shadows here are completely destitute. The rules of the city are simple. You burn a pinch of incense to the emperor. You get your trade guild license. You feed your family. You refuse the incense. You lose your shop. You lose your status. You watch your children go hungry. The pressure is constant. The poverty is absolute. The threat is deadly. Jesus speaks into this terrified room in Revelation chapter 2. Verse 9. He says, and the imagery is certainly there. But if you look closer at the very first page of the scroll, I know your tribulation and your poverty. But the English translation softens the blow. The word translated tribulation here is the Greek phlipsis. It appears 45 times in the New Testament. And its root is violently physical. Phlipsis does not mean a difficult season. It does not mean emotional distress. It means literal, mechanical compression. It is the word used in the ancient world for a heavy boulder, placed directly onto a man's chest. It is the word used for the massive stone wheel of an olive press, grinding the fruit down until the skin breaks and the oil flows out. It is the exact same word Paul uses in 2 Corinthians 1-8 when he writes, "We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself." That root changes everything. The believers in Smyrna are not just experiencing cultural pushback. They are in the press. Every day, the culture tightens the vice. Every day, the stone gets heavier. Every day, the economic strangulation cuts a little deeper into their lungs. But there is a detail hiding in the name of the city itself. Smyrna takes its name from myrrh, the bitter resin used for perfume and for embalming the dead. And myrrh only releases its most valuable fragrance when it is crushed. Jesus looks at a congregation being ground into the dirt. At the exact coordinates where the courier was told to carry the ink, you start to see something the timeline reading completely misses. And he does not promise to lift the stone. He tells them to hold on. He tells them the crushing is about to get worse. Prison is coming. Death is coming. But he gives them a title no other city receives. Their poverty is not a sign of God's absence. It is the proof of their absolute allegiance. The empire looks at them and sees starving outcasts. Jesus looks at them and says, "They are the wealthiest people on the entire postal route." The courier rolls up the parchment. He leaves the scent of crushed myrrh behind. He travels 50 miles further north, walking into the shadow of a massive, throne-shaped mountain. The next church is not being crushed from the outside. They are being poisoned from the inside. The great altar of Zeus at Pergamum does not look like a place of evil. It looks like an architectural masterpiece. A massive structure of white marble, towering 1,000 feet above the Caicus River Valley. In Revelation 2:13, Jesus looks at this sheer concentration of imperial and pagan power and calls it the place where Satan's throne is. The believers living in the shadow of that throne had already proven their courage. They had watched a faithful witness named Antipas Diabrutal agonizing death, and they had refused to deny the name of Christ. But the most effective weapon in Pergamum was not the sword. The book does not begin with the end of the world. It begins with a postal route. 7 specific cities. It was the dining room. We tend to view spiritual warfare through a highly cinematic, dramatic lens, constantly looking for overt manifestations of darkness and persecution. But in the social and economic reality of the first-century Roman province, the true battlefield was the trade guild banquet. To work in the city, to feed your family, and to participate in public life, you had to attend these guild dinners. And every dinner began with the thick smell of roasted meat sacrificed to a local deity, often followed by heavy drinking and ritual sexual immorality. A faction inside the church began arguing for accommodation. The text calls it the teaching of Balaam, reaching all the way back into the ancient history of the Book of Numbers. When the prophet Balaam realized he could not spiritually curse the Israelites from the outside, he realized he didn't have to. He simply taught the king of Moab to invite them to a feast. If you cannot defeat a holy people with a frontal assault, you invite them to dinner. You entice them to eat the sacrifices, to sleep with the priestesses, and to slowly blend in until they are indistinguishable from the culture around them. Compromise is not a sudden collapse. It is a slow, pragmatic negotiation. If something about this tension between ancient faith and cultural survival is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the believers in Pergamum sit down at the 7 real congregations, 7 groups of people who are exhausted, compromised, terrified, and comfortably numb. The letters to the 7 churches are not just a historical prologue. Pagan table. They cut the meat. They raise the silver cups. And they convince themselves that their private, internal theology perfectly excuses their public, external participation in the empire. They believe they can separate their bodies from their beliefs. But Jesus completely rejects this division, warning that if they do not repent of this slow assimilation, he will personally come to war against them with the sword of his mouth. The line in the sand is drawn at Pergamum, but the courier must keep walking, because the disease of compromise does not stay in one city. It travels 40 miles southeast, where it finds a church. That does not just tolerate the corruption at the table. They put it in the pulpit. The air in Thyatira rings with the sound of hammering bronze. Furnaces burn hot. Men beat the metal. Dyers pull heavy, wet wool from vats of crushed purple roots. The smell of dye and sweat fills the narrow streets. This is a blue-collar town. It is a city of unions. The trade guilds control the economy. They control the shops. They control the food. The pressure here does not come from the emperor. The pressure comes from the union boss. You pay your dues to the guild's patron god. You attend the drunken festivals. You eat the sacrificed meat. They are a diagnosis. Jesus is not offering a cryptic riddle. He is naming a disease, a spiritual erosion that every single generation will face. You participate in the rituals, or you do not work. Your children do not eat. Your business starves. The church here is actually growing, Jesus praises their love. He sees their faith. He commends their service. He notes their endurance. He even says their latest works are greater than their first. They are active. They are busy. They are doing the work of ministry in a hard place. Jesus introduces himself to this city with a specific image. His eyes are a flame of fire. His feet are burnished bronze. He speaks their language. He knows the heat of the forge. He knows how impurities are burned away. He looks straight through the busy, active surface of their congregation. He sees the rod at the center. A woman stands in their gatherings. The letter calls her Jezebel. She claims the spirit of prophecy. She holds the authority. And she tells the bronze workers exactly what they desperately want to hear. She preaches a gospel of pragmatic survival. She says the idol meat means nothing. She says the temple beds are harmless. She says you can plunge your hands into the empire's dirt and keep your heart clean. She is teaching them to compartmentalize their lives. You worship Jesus on the first day of the week. You worship the guild gods on the other 6.